we're going
This
to discuss.
conference will now be recorded.
So, mm, so before we dive into the concept, I would like to request all the faculty to give video feedbacks about the sessions that have happened so far. We will be compiling these videos, the videos that we'll get from all the FDPs that are happening from APSSDC, and compile them as a single video, which will be presented to the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh. So that's the idea we have, and we request all the faculty to use your computer camera or your mobile phone camera and record a video about these sessions. What could be improved further, what did you learn, and what are the outcomes that we met. If you can cover all these things, that would be of great help for us. All right, Sai Shankar, you please coordinate with all the faculty members and get the video feedbacks from them. I hope I'm
Okay,
audible
sir.
to all. Jai Krishna sir, tomorrow by the end of the session, if you can do it, it would be of great help for us. Arunakumari ma'am, certificates will be issued as soon as we close the session, and within 2 days after the closure, we may provide you certificates, ma'am. And certificates are based on attendance criteria only. If you meet attendance criteria, then you'll definitely get a certificate. And tomorrow in the afternoon, we are planning to conduct a small test on the concepts that we covered. It is not to test your skills, it is just to understand how far we are able to reach you. So that's the agenda or motive that we have. And feedback links will also be shared to you after the exam. And I request all the respected faculty to understand this. It is not to test your skills, it is just to understand how far we are able to meet our outcomes. I mean, how far we are able to meet our objective. So for that reason, we are planning to conduct a test, not to test your skills. And probably we may also not, we may not grade you because we are not testing your skills. We will not grade you, we'll just ask you a few questions on a web interface. I mean, some web interfaces like on Hacker Earth, we have admin access. So based on that, we will conduct a test. Having another sessions. Sir, what do you mean, sir? Praveen, sir. I'm unable to understand. And right,
This
create a
conference will
project
now be
using empty
recorded.
activity. Of course, there are other activity templates available. You may choose any one of these, but these are more sophisticated activities. Meaning, um, I don't mean to say that you cannot use these activities. You can use these activities, but if you start everything from scratch, that would help you in building up these activities if you are messing up with something. So that's why we always recommend you to choose empty activity. Click next and write the application name. So the application name can be view model and live data. Make sure that your package name is unique. So if your package name is unique, you get to upload this application without any hassle on Google Play Store. Otherwise, it would be more expensive to change the package name and upload the same application on Google Play Store again and again. That is not recommended. And make sure that your save location is accessible. Choose the programming language to Java and set the minimum required SDK to API 21. I don't recommend you to use API 14 even if you are targeting 100% of the devices, because most of the newest features available on Android are made available from API 21. Most of them, not every one of them, most of them. And choosing API 21 will make sure that your app will run fine on 94.1% of the active devices that are available on Google Play Store. Click finish to create the project. Now to talk about lifecycle level components, I would like you to search for life cycle aware components in Android. So, and we get to see this link, handling life cycles with life cycle aware components. So previously, my colleagues might have discussed few concepts with you. For example, they might have talked about on-site instance state to save the data across the orientation changes from landscape to portrait and portrait to landscape. If you're moving, then your data is generally reset. And they might have discussed about how to save the data across orientation changes. And the second thing they might have talked about is about probably about shade preferences. They might have talked about to save the data even if you are exiting the app. Okay. And the most important thing is they might have discussed about life cycle of an activity. Life cycle of an activity involves 7 states that we come across: created, started, destroyed, resume. That way we have 7 states, and they might have discussed about all of them. So the concept that we're going to discuss about is an advanced concept for the majority of these two things. I mean, we're saving the data across the life cycle changes, and also the life cycle of an activity. So in combination of these two, Android architecture components came up with another 2 components, and they are view model and live data. So let's see what they are. Let's see the official documentation related to that. So lifecycle aware components perform actions in response to a change in the lifecycle status of another component, such as activities and fragments. And these components help you produce better organized and often lighter weight code that is easier to maintain. So for this reason, there is a need for us to shift from a MVC architecture to MVVM architecture, because MVVM architecture facilitates the usage of these advanced libraries that are made available in Android Jetpack. So if you scroll down a little bit, you get to see that there are so much of code written, right? And this document will help you understand the lifecycle aware components in a better way. Okay. So if you look at this, we get to see view model and live data. So if you want to explore what is view model, I want you to click on view model, which is available on the left hand side. On the left hand side navigator, you get to see view model. If you click on that, all right. Yeah. So I'll paste this link in the chat box. Please find it out. So view model is a class that extends to object class. And we know that object is the superclass of all classes in Java. So view model is a class that is responsible for preparing and managing the data for an activity or a fragment. Because activity or a fragment are the components. These are the 2 components. Activity and fragments are the 2 components that interacts with the user directly. So they'll get information from the user, and also they'll update the user with information. And view model is a class that lives across the lifecycle changes of these activities and fragments. Okay, so this is a nice document, but we have a very clear document about view model. So let's search for view model on Google. Document that I have shown you is about the view model. The introduction of view model is entirely written here. This is not a huge document that you can this you can read later. But if you search for view model, you get to see this view model link. Yeah, view model overview. So this is the document I am searching for. So let me paste this link. So the second link is more important. The first link is also readable, but the second link has much information than the first one. So the view model is class and it is designed to store and manage UI related data in a lifecycle conscious way. Okay. So if you scroll down, yeah. So here you get to see the view model scope. The scope of the view model is across the activity lifecycle changes. So whatever happens to the activity, your view model will still be alive. It will not die. View model will only die once your activity is finished. Once your activity is finished off of the stack, only in that case your view model gets destroyed. In all other cases, your view model um, is mortal. All right. So how do we implement view model? Before we actually save data across the lifecycle changes of the activity, let's first see how this view model is given a birth and takes it death. So let's search how to add dependencies. To add dependencies, I would like to search for view model dependency and view model and live data dependency. Both are the same. So if you jump into this into this particular link, again, I'll paste the link in the chat box. If you scroll down a little bit, you get to see that these are the dependencies that we have. For Kotlin, they have given the dependencies in the next tab, and for Java, they have given it in another tab. So I want you to copy these two dependencies. Anyway, we will talk about lifecycle component, another lifecycle component called live data later on. But for now, I want you to copy these two dependencies. Now come back to Android's app level build.gradle file, and in the dependencies section, please paste the dependencies. Now you have to change this particular variable to its value, which is 2.2.0. Sir, how do you know that this particular variable has to be replaced with 2.2.0? That I have on the documentation. You please visit back this documentation and you get to see that you have 2.2.0 on the lifecycle version variable. So lifecycle version is a variable that holds 2.2.0 as its value. So instead of writing the variable here, I just replaced it with the value. Okay. For your reference, I'm going to add these two dependencies in the chat window. So once we are done with this step, please let me know. We will proceed.
This conference will now be recorded.
Once we are done with the dependency adding or adding dependencies, the next step that I want to do is I want to take you to our GitHub repository. I think most of you have an access to our GitHub repository. And I have created a starter code for you. So please visit this link and follow the steps that I'm following. As soon as you hit this link, you get to see that I have given you the XML code, which you all know it already. You know how to do this XML design. That's the reason I don't want to repeat the things over and over. That's why I've given you this starter code. And on main activity also, what you're supposed to do is also given here. I have also included comments to ease you in understanding these few logics that I have written here. Okay, so please do along with me. Jump into your activity underscore main.xml. Okay, I have to click this sync now. I did not click on it. All right. Now go to your activity underscore main.xml and jump into the text tab. We have got three options on the top left corner. This one is for design. This one is for design and preview. XML and preview. And this is for XML code. Now remove everything. Come back to the link that I have given you and copy the XML code. So this is all the XML code that we have. Right click, copy. Come back to Android Studio, right click, paste. Look at the design. It looks good, isn't it? And you may remember, by seeing this design, you may remember one of the concepts that we dealt so far, that we dealt previously. Now I mean to say that is about this looks similar to HelloToast app, isn't it? All right, so the design part is complete. So on the design part, I want you to understand that we have given the ID of the text view as count underscore text view. And we have got two buttons. One button says increment and the other button says decrement. We are using linear layout of vertical orientation. And we have got two on-click event handlers. One is decrement and the other one is increment. The reason why we are getting a red mark on this is on main-activity.java, we don't have a method by the name increment or decrement. That's the reason on click we are getting this error. So far so good. Now the next part is jump into the same link and copy the entire code that I have given you for main activity. Copy the code, come back to your main activity.java, leave the package name as it is. Please do not touch this package name. If you do touch this package name, it's hard for us to help you. Now instead of all this, paste the code. So we're getting an error on app compare activity that we can import the class. And there are no errors so far. So if you're done with this step, please let me know. For my convenience, what I'm doing is I'm going to run this app. Probably my app is running. If I click on increment, the value in the text view is raising by 1. And if I click on decrement, the value gets decremented by 1. All right. So can I have quick responses in the chat box? At Okay, most of you did it. Great. Now there is a problem with this application. It's okay, sir. Let it take some time. No problem. Sambasavaram, sir. Now, if I rotate the screen from portrait to landscape, you can clearly see that the value is getting reset. And this is not recommended. We have to save the data across the life cycle changes of this activity. So how do we save it? Okay, so before we jump into saving this data, let us first understand how your view model is going to take its um, life. Okay, come to your project, right click on your package, go to new and select Java class. Let's give the class name as main view model, because this view model is associated with main activity. That's why to clearly distinguish between which view model is for which activity, I'm naming this view model as main view model. Click on OK, and this class has to be extended to a view model class. Make sure that you are selecting this view model, which is AndroidX.lifecycle. ఇస్తుందా? ఇది కూడా I think there is a disturbance from there is a parallel noise. If you can give me a time for 5 minutes, I'll fix this out. Okay, thank you.
This conference will now be recorded.
Now, after extending your class to view model, we need to have a constructor, because our constructor, I mean, whatever the constructor that we are going to create, whenever we create an object for this Java class, that constructor will be invoked. So to create a constructor, all we need to do is click on Alt and Insert. You get to see so many options, and among them choose constructor, and that would give you a constructor. Now in this constructor, I'm going to write a log statement.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, sorry for the interruption. Can you repeat the last step, sir? Last one.
This one, ma'am. I just created a view model class. Okay, constructor,
Yeah,
ma'am.
Java. Yeah.
So to create a constructor, all we need to do is click on Alt and Insert, ma'am. Alt plus Insert button, ma'am. That would give you so many options, and among them choose constructor.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And now on this constructor, I'm going to write a log statement. So log.I. So these log statements will appear in logcat. So whenever we encounter this constructor, whenever we execute this constructor, we get to print this log statement in the logcat. So in the tags place, let's give main view model to understand that this log statement is coming in from main view model. And let's also give some message. Let's say that view model is created. Okay, so when we get this log statement printed on the logcat, we can be sure that main view model is given a birth. Now we have a default method called onCleared, which gets encountered when your view model is about to be destroyed. When your view model is about to die, we get to encounter a method called onCleared. You may ask me, sir, how do you know that there is a method called onCleared? So from the official documentation, if you look at this picture, we get to see onCleared method. So with the help of this onCleared method, I mean, with the help of this diagram, I can understand that onCleared method is something that gets invoked when your view model is about to be destroyed or about to be destroyed. So let's override onCleared method. To override onCleared method, all we need to do is write on and wait for the suggestions to come up. And from the available suggestions, choose onCleared method. And by default, you're going to call onCleared method of your viewModel class, because we are calling super.onCleared. So this statement will call onCleared method of viewModel class, which is this. Now in this particular method, I'm going to write another log statement, log.i, and again this log is also coming from main viewModel, and I would like to write a message saying viewModel is dead or destroyed, meaning that your viewModel will not be available after encountering this method onCleared. As soon as you encounter onCleared method, your viewModel will not be available anymore. The viewModel becomes late viewModel. Great. So now on main activity, before we modify any of the existing code, I recommend you to create a viewModel object here. So private main viewModel, let's call it MVM. Now on onCreate method, initialize your viewModel. To initialize viewModel, you should write MVM is equal to new main viewModel. Great. I would like to write another log statement right here, log.i. From main activity, I'm going to print this log, and I will say that main viewModel is initialized. Put a semicolon at the end, and now let's run the app to check how our viewModel is actually working. There are a few errors on this place, I believe. Yeah, we did not close this log statement with a semicolon. Now let's run the app and check the logcat for our and we have written log.i, meaning that we are supposed to check the info window of this particular log window. Great. So if you can look at the screen, I mean, as soon as my app is launched, as soon as the app is launched, we will be working on onCreate method, isn't it? We will directly work on onCreate method. And on onCreate method, we have successfully created the viewModel. I mean, main viewModel is initialized. So before this main viewModel is initialized, we can also see that viewModel is created. Nice. So to filter all these messages which are required, main viewModel is also starting with the word main, and main activity is also starting with the same word. Let's search for main so that these log messages will be filtered. Nice, isn't it? Now you come back to the emulator or your physical device, whatever is accessible. If you rotate the screen from landscape to portrait, you get to see another two messages saying that your viewModel is created and again your main viewModel is initialized. That means whenever you're encountering on destroy method of your activity, your viewModel is also getting destroyed. Sorry, your viewModel is also a new object for your viewModel is getting created. Okay, you're creating a viewModel, you're initializing the main viewModel on the main activity, and when you rotate the screen, you're creating a new instance of a viewModel and you're initializing that new instance to a main viewModel, which will not help us in solving the problem that we have now, because this new, on main activity, if you can see, by writing new main viewModel will not result in initializing this MVM object with the older viewModel. It will only create a new model all the time whenever it is encountered, and that new object will be assigned to MVM. I hope you get my message. Please respond to me in the chat box so that I can proceed or repeat this concept.
This conference will now be recorded.
So how do we initialize this view model so that every time the same statement gets encountered, we will not create a new instance of a view model altogether. What we should do is we should search for the existing view model object, pick it up, and just initialize this MVM object. So for that, we have a class called view model factory. If you search for view model factory, you get to read about view model factory class. Factory. Yeah, view model provider. Yeah, view model provider is the class. I'm going wrong somewhere. So using view model provider, we can initialize our MVM object so that even if it is encountered for the second time, it will not initialize your MVM object with the new view model object. It will initialize the MVM object with the existing view model object. It will search for the existing view model object, pick it up, pick that up, and just initialize this MVM object. So come back, and here write new view model provider. Yeah, this is the one. And for view model provider, you're supposed to pass the lifecycle owner. The lifecycle owner is this. And on top of it, you call the get method. And on this get method, we are supposed to call your main view model dot class. So every time this line is encountered, you will not be creating a new instance of the main view model. Instead of that, you will search for the existing main view model object, pick that up, and initialize this MVM again so that you will never lose the data. Okay, let's check the app again. Let's run the app after changing this line. Open the logcat and make sure that you have this main filter on and you are on info section of this particular logcat. Now coming back to the emulator, if I rotate my screen from landscape to portrait, okay, so it's in portrait. So let's rotate it into landscape. So if you rotate it to landscape, you get to see that your main view model is initialized, but you do not get to see that your view model is created. Your view model is created only once. And whenever you do the configuration change of this activity from portrait to landscape or landscape to portrait, you can only see that your view model is initialized, but not view model is created, meaning that you're not losing the data. And that's very important for us. Praveen sir was asking something. Put the URL here. So which URL do you want, sir? I mean, okay, view model factory. All right, sir. I think view model provider is the right term to search for, sir. I've made a mistake. It is view model provider. Yeah, view model provider. So this is the link that you have to visit to read more about view model provider. So please go to this link and see if you can learn. I mean, there are so many points to learn here. So please see and check this URL. All right, fine. So when will this view model be destroyed? If you click on the back button on this activity, your activity will be destroyed and will be removed out of the memory. When it is removed out of the memory, your view model gets destroyed. So your view model will no longer be available. Again, if you open the app, again, if you search for the app, which is view model and live data, where is it? Yeah, here it is. If you open it again, you get to see another view model is created. So this is how the view model's life cycle depends on. I mean, this is how the life cycle of view model goes on. Okay. Now let's see how this view model can actually manage the data. How this view model can actually um, take the utmost care of the data that we're dealing with on the activity. Right from the beginning of this session, I've been telling you that main view model is a class that is created in association with the main activity. You please do remember the point, because it has a lot of significance about the concept that we're going to discuss in the future. Now, if you want to keep this count variable's value to be saved across the lifecycle changes of the activity, you're supposed to uh, create this variable on main view model. And also, if there are any changes that you want to make to this variable, those changes have to be made on this variable only inside main view model, but not inside main activity. I mean, when you want to save this count variable's value, the first step that you're going to do is cut this variable from here and paste it inside the main view model. Let's keep it public. Okay. So to change the value of count, you're supposed to create two methods. Method 1 is increment and the method 2 is decrement. So method 1 is public void increment, and the method 2 is public void decrement. Now on increment, what I'm going to do is I'll just do count plus plus. That will increase the value of the count by 1. And on decrement, I'll do count minus minus. That would decrement the value of the count. Great, isn't it? So whatever the modifications that I'm going to do on this count variable, I'm going to do it on the main view model itself. I'm not going to do it on main activity. So on main activity, I've got these 4 lines of code which deals with the count value. So these are the 4 lines of code that I have that directly deals with the count variable. So instead of dealing with these values right here, what we are going to do is we're going to remove these lines and slightly modify the code so that we can adjust to make our code call the required methods on main view model. Nice. So we have MVM object. On top of the MVM object, let's call increment. And you'll get a count value, isn't it? And that count value has to be updated on the text view. So we have count text view, and on top of count text view, we are supposed to set the text to string dot value of mvm dot count. So in the same way, we'll copy these two. I mean, this in the same way, by following the order of these statements, we will write the statements in the decrement method as well. So on the decrement method, mvm dot decrement, and on top of it, count text view dot set text string dot value of, because string dot value of is the method that converts any kind of value into a string type value. Okay. We can also write I mean, mostly um, our trainers, I mean, my colleagues might have told you that you can write it like this: set text of, in the double quotations, I mean, after writing two double quotations, you keep a plus symbol and write the variable name. Both these two approaches are similar. I mean, both these two approaches come to a common point of conclusion. So both are right. But this is um, more recommended way of doing the conversion. All right, now let's run the app and try to observe the differences. I will be waiting for your responses in the chat box. Tell me if you observe anything new.
This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, it's 11 o'clock and let's start. So now our discussion is going to be on life cycle. I mean, on the live data. So to understand live data, what I want you to do is go to Google and search for live data. So live data overview. So this is the link that you're going to click, and this has the entire information that is related to live data. Okay. So live data is an observable data holder class. Unlike regular observers, live data is lifecycle aware. Okay. And if you have ever gone through RX Java, Reactive Extensible Java, and RX Android, you may have gone through these observer patterns. In the same way, we will be observing a set of a particular kind of data, so that whenever it is updated, all these observers will be notified about the update, so that they can reflect the same on the UI. So let's see how to implement this live data. So this documentation is an important thing to read. I suggest you to read this documentation whenever you get some time. Okay. So live data works this way. We will create live data for a particular kind of data, and we will create observers at various parts of the UI. So whenever there is a update on the data, whenever the data changes, or you get new data, or you get some old data deleted, then all these observers, whenever there is a change in the data, all these observers will be notified about that particular change. And as soon as they get to receive the changes, what they will do is they will notify the UI, so that the user will always be updated with the latest data. Okay. Okay, let's see how to implement that. So to implement live data, all we need to do is on main viewModel.java, instead of creating an integer variable count, we will create main viewModel. I mean, we'll create mutable live data of integer kind object. So instead of this variable, we will create an object. So let me quickly comment this out. Sorry for my throat. Okay. So instead of this variable, what we will do is we will create a mutable live data of kind integer, and we will call it count. Okay, let us initialize this mutable live data. So this is how we initialize mutable live data object. And in the constructor, instead of just writing a log statement, we will also assign a value to this mutable live data kind object, which is count. So count dot set value and pass 0 to it. And in the same way, when it has to increment, instead of just calling count plus plus, what we will do is we will call count dot set value, and on top of it we will first get the count values current value by calling dot get value method, and for this we will just add 1. In the same way, for decrement method also we will follow the same. Instead of count minus minus, we will do count dot set value of, and we will call count dot get value, which will get the current value, and we will just write -1. ఏమైనా అర్జెంట్ అని చెప్పండి. Okay, so if you are done till this far, the next step is go to main activity.java, and in here, instead of calling count underscore tv dot set text all the time whenever you want to update the data on the count text view, we will just comment all these lines out. Whichever the lines will update the UI on the activity underscore main.xml with the current data, we will um, comment out all those lines. So even this line is also updating the count value on the text view. Instead of all these lines, I am going to write an observer that will update the UI whenever there is a change in the count variable. So to do that, we are going to set the observer on MVM object. So we have to call the MVM object, and on top of it we should call the count variable, because on the count variable only we are going to set the observer. On this count variable, we are supposed to call observe method that will take 2 arguments. The first argument is the lifecycle owner, and the second argument is the observer object. I mean, we have to create a new instance of the observer interface. It would give you a default method called onChanged. So this method onChanged will be encountered whenever there is a change in the count variable's value. On this count variable's value, whenever there is a change, that change will be reflected to this particular method. So here I would simply write count underscore tv dot set text, and I will call string dot value of method, and for that I will pass integer, because integer is an object here. Now let's run the app. So you see, as soon as we run the app, if I click on increment, the value is incremented, and if I click on decrement, the value is getting decremented. But if you understand, you will be wondered to see that we are not using set text method on increment and decrement methods, and we are not using it on onCreate method as well, because we have an observer that is set on top of the count value or the count variable. This observer is actually updating the data whenever there is a change in the data, and that's all happening because of the live data object that we have created. Initially, we may feel that this is a bit complex topic, but it is not. Trust me on this point. And if you go through the documentation, it becomes much more easier for you. And I want you to go through the documentation for each and every topic that we delivered so far. So I'll be waiting for your comments in the chat box so that I'll decide whether to proceed or to repeat. Mohan Venkateswara sir, great job sir. Sambasavara sir, it's okay sir. Anyway, I will wait for 2 minutes. Meanwhile, if you can join us, that would be great sir.
This conference will now be recorded.
We have got so much code in here. Um, if I remove these comments, let's see how much code do we have. So I'm just removing the comments because you might have written the comments for your particular app. And let's see how many lines of code do we have on main activity. And let us try a little bit more to reduce this code and make it much simpler to read. Generally, MVVM architecture will have very less code because there is a clear distinction between the data logic and the UI logic. Yeah, we have got around 40 lines, not exactly 40 lines, we have empty spaces as well. Anyway, let us assume that we have got 40 lines. What if there is a way to remove these methods? And what if there is a way to remove these lines of code? So let's try to reduce this code down to 10-15 lines on main activity. All right. So the best part of this is, okay. So let me take the confirmation from my colleagues. Um, Anybody from APSSDC, trainers from APSSDC, if anybody can respond, I have a small question to ask.
This conference will now be recorded.
So with the help of data binding, we get to see a very less number of lines in the code, and also your UI and logic related transactions will be easily manageable, or all the logics that are to be written for UI and are to be written for data manipulation can be easily distinguishable. So what is data binding? To learn about data binding, our team has prepared documentation. I mean, maybe Anusha has prepared some documentation, and I've just kept it on this link. And this is the documentation prepared during Kotlin sessions, and these documentations are not completely prepared. Only data binding concept related things are written in a careful way, but the other concepts needs another or two reviews. So I cannot share the entire link. Instead of that, I'll share a GitHub link. Yeah, so this is the link that I can share with you. So data binding is a library that is available for both Kotlin and Java, and you may use this data binding library to simplify so many tasks that we do. We can get rid of find view by id calls. We need not to write find view by id whenever you want to connect a view with its object on Java. And there are other advantages as well. This is the link for the documentation that we did. Okay, here it is. And to explore the proper official documentation, this is gonna be the link. So both these links are pasted in the chat box. You please find the links out. I'm not pasting these links in the readme.md. Chaitanya, if you can do it for me, I will be feeling great about the help.
Okay, sir.
So data binding library, if you can observe, the data binding library is support library that allows you to bind UI components in your layouts to data sources in your app using a declarative format. So rather than doing programmatically, rather than writing find view by IDs, we will just make use of the data binding library to connect the objects with the, to connect the data sources and the layout file components. Okay, so let's see how to implement this data binding library. Data binding library, the advantage of data binding library is data binding library need not to have any dependency. It comes by default for all the Android Studio versions that we have if your Gradle plugin is updated. Probably you're supposed to use Android versions above 3.3 or 3.4. Okay, so I'm using 3.6.3 and it is available on 3.6.3 for sure. So to enable data binding, what you're supposed to do is jump into project and explore build.gradle file of your app. Under the Android section, you write data binding, open the curly braces or code blocks and write enabled equals to true. You click on sync now project and that would sync the project clearly. So with these two lines, our data binding library is enabled in the project. Now with the help of this, we can simplify a lot of things that we do. The second step in using data binding library is jumping into activity underscore main.xml and surrounding this entire code with layout tag. So instead of linear layout as the root view group, or instead of constraint layout as the root view group, or instead of frame layout as the root view group, or instead of relative layout as the root view group, we will only have layout as the root view group if you want to enable data binding for this particular activity. So for this particular activity, I want to enable data binding. So layout. So this is the opening tag of the layout and this is the closing tag of the layout. Put this closing tag of the layout at the end of the linear layout. Okay, so okay, this is not cut, this is just copied. Now you don't have any errors. You put the opening tag here and closing tag here. It is okay to move these namespaces which are starting with XMLNS. So these are all namespaces. So with the help of these links, your Android Studio is understanding about these tags. About these attributes. So what if user writes Android colon ID? What if user writes Android colon layout width? What if user writes Android colon layout height? And so on will only be understandable if you have this namespace. And in the same way, the other namespaces are also available. So let's copy all these three namespaces, cut them out from here, jump into the opening tag of your layout and paste them there. Of course, this step is not mandatory. I have followed this step just to make the code look pretty. Now inside this layout tag, the second step that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a data tag. But that data tag is supposed to handle the data related tasks for me from this particular activity underscore main.xml. So create a data tag So put the data tag, start the data tag and end the data tag, and in between this data tag, create a variable. And of course, in Java, variables can only be created with the, in this order. You have to specify the data type and then you have to give the variable name. So here, the name of the variable is, I'm gonna call this variable as myvar. The type of the variable is the view model, main view model type, and the main view model is defined here. So give your package name and call main view model on top of this. So this variable is of main view model data type. So whatever you can do with main view model class, all of them you can do it from myvar variable name. So if you are done with this step, you please let me know. We will further continue. See, I find it out hard to check the messages and show the code parallelly. So I require um, somebody's help from APSSDC. So you please read out the responses, or you clear the doubts of the faculty if they are asking you any. Is it okay? Can somebody come forward, or
Okay, sir.
all right?
Someone is asking to show the Gradle file.
Yeah, that I can see. Mm. Sir, this is what I have written under the Android section. So under the Android section, I've just added data binding and enabled and made it enabled.
Sir, J. Krishna sir asking what is type, sir?
Okay, sir. We come across primitive data types in Java like integer, float, boolean, char, and so on. In the same way, we can also customize our data types. Like we can create our own kind of data types. So in this way, in this case, myvar is a variable of kind main view model, so that the main view model functions will be carried out by this variable. Okay, proceeding further. Can I, Chaitanya?
Sir, no more queries, sir.
All
Sir, it
right.
is getting in red color. Sir,
Which is
J.
getting
Krishna
in
sir
red
is
color?
asking the type is red. Type is getting in red color, sir.
All right, all right. Sir, you please share the screen, sir.
This conference will now be recorded.
Sir, there is a message in chat box, sir, from Ropa madam.
Yeah, both Harika ma'am and Rupa ma'am are correct. So if your app size is less, there is a chance that more number of users will use your app. And also, if you are offering less number of features and your app size is bigger, then the turnaround, or the number of users that may show interest in using your app may be less. So that's why your app size must be as much lesser as possible. Anyway, PUBG's case is different.
Sir, Praveen sir is asking what about the RAM usage, sir? It's okay with size, and what about the RAM usage, sir?
So if the size is less, the app is going not going to use a lot of RAM size, sir, generally, but it is not definitely. Even if the app size is smaller, there are a lot of chances of occupying the more RAM space. Even if the app size is smaller, there is a lot of chance to occupy a lot of RAM space because of holding the resources. If there are a lot of system resources that are being used in the app, then there is a chance of occupying a lot of RAM space. Not only because of the application. If the RAM size is lesser or if the RAM size is mostly utilized, your system will also go down, go slow. So it's better to not hold so many resources if you don't need them. Of course, if you need them for your app to run properly, then you're supposed to hold the resources also. There is no way of not holding the resources if you need them. If you need them, you should hold the resources. At most of the time, you should make sure that the resources are optimally utilized. And the optimization techniques in Android, if you search for it, okay, let me show the advanced Android course. Yeah, this is the one. So here the optimization concepts are being covered. If you look at it, yeah, make your apps fast and small. So this is the unit that focuses on how to make your apps fast and small. So if you go through lesson 4 of performance, you get to see the optimization techniques. So how do we visit this? You click on this link, not this link. Yeah, you click on the course code labs and go through this code lab, which is which is for, yeah, part A, part B, part C. If you can complete all these code labs, you'll get more idea on how to optimize your app's performance. I'll paste the link in the chat box as usually. Please find it out. I think sometime, okay, Sambasava Rao sir is asking that. I think sometime depends on the services. Yes, sir. If your services are holding the resources which consume a lot of memory, even in that case, your app and phone, both of them will slow down. If there is no RAM space, you're done. Your app and your phone slows down. It hangs a lot of time. Previously, when we were using 512 MB based RAMs, we used to use it slowly, but now the speed has been increased. Users are waiting for lightning speed. I mean, they're expecting lightning speed for with every app. Okay, patience levels are getting decreased. It's absolutely right, sir. All right. So shall we go on with the next topic? The next topic is how to get data from internet. All right. So getting data from internet is always been a fascinating thing as a beginner in writing applications. Even if you are writing an application on uh, even if you are writing a web app, getting the data, showing it to the user in a proper format is always a fascinating thing. Even in Android, it is as much fascinating as it is in web development, if not more fascinating. Okay. So to get data from internet, usually we used to use async task. And async task is pretty easy to use. Okay. But now I don't prefer async task because it is deprecated. So if you search for async task, yeah, it is async task. It's not async tal. If you search for async task, recording, yeah, it is started. So if you see the official documentation on async task, the async task, you can clearly see that this class was deprecated from the next version of Android. So from the very next version of Android, there is no async task. So we cannot use async task. So that's why I don't recommend, and I did not include, I mean, we did not include it in the syllabus. We did not include this in the syllabus only for this reason. So this becomes useless for you in the very next future. Within a span of 2-3 months, the next version is going to be released. And after that, there is no point in using async task. So that's why we just kept it aside. So what are we replacing this concept with? There comes retrofit. So retrofit is a, okay, let's read about retrofit. So you search for retrofit and you'll go to Square. Square is a company that develops so many libraries, APIs, and these APIs make it easy for us to handle network calls, loading images, and so on. So there is a popular image loading library called Glide, and Glide is the most popular image loading library, and it is built by Retrofit. I mean, the same company which built Retrofit, which is Square. So Square is based in California, if I'm not wrong, in the Silicon Valley, and it is the same company that made Glide and other popular libraries. So let's use Retrofit to get some data from GitHub, because in the example also they just give GitHub. Not only for that reason, GitHub API is much more easy to access. So to access GitHub library, we have so Retrofit is a type-safe HTTP client for Android and Java. So we are restricting our discussion to Java, Android only. So to visit this Retrofit's website, this is the landing page of Retrofit library. But if you want to see the code also, you get to open this GitHub link. That would take you to the Retrofit library. So let's keep these two links side by side. This link we will use to get the dependencies, and this link we will use to implement the functionality. So we are working with api.github.com. So api.github.com will give you a JSON response. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, which is a syntax to transfer data from client to server and server to client in a structured format. Previously, in the place of JSON, we used to use XML to transport data from client to server and server to client by defining user-defined tags. In the same way, JSON is another format of transferring data, but this is more efficient than XML because uh, it occupies less memory when compared to XML. If there is a huge JSON, it occupies memory in KBs, but whereas in XML it occupies memory in thousands of KBs. Okay, and that's not the only difference. When we have so many other differences, it's easy to parse, whereas XML is a little bit hard to parse. It is easy to understand, whereas XML is not easy to understand. Not so easy to understand, even if they're easy. So that's why we mostly prefer JSON responses. And there is no way of deviating from parsing XML responses if we don't have an option. If the API is only giving out XML responses, then we are supposed to parse XMLs. There is no way of deviating from that. But most of the time, if we have JSON response, we won't go to XML responses. So api.github.com is the URL that we're gonna hit. On this, if you write users slash write your username of GitHub and slash repos, that would give you a list of your repositories on your account. I assume most of the faculty has GitHub repositories. If you don't have GitHub repositories, feel free to use my username. My username is pawankumarti46. Now, if you are trying to create a GitHub repository, there is no use on that because your GitHub repository has to have has to have some repositories in it. So please, if you don't have a GitHub account, don't try to create it now and keep your username. It's okay to use my username. All right. So this is a large JSON format data. Okay. And we have to get it on the Android application. And that's our motive. If you look at Square website, the Square repository of on GitHub, we have this library. add this dependency because this is the latest one. Com dot square up dot retrofit 2 colon retrofit colon 2.9.0. So you copy this dependency, come back to Android Studio. First of all, create a project. Sorry. Select empty activity, go to next, and let's name it GitHub. So the project name is GitHub repo. Make sure that the package name is unique and also the save location is pointing out on the desktop. Okay, for me, I need it on the desktop. If you need it on some other drive, feel free to choose that drive and folder. Select the programming language to Java and set the minimum required SDK to API 21 and click finish. That would create the project for you. And once it is created, open your build.gradle file of your application and paste the dependency. The project is created for me. Now I'm opening build.gradle file of my app and I'll just paste the dependency. I'll write implementation. In between the single quotes, I'll just paste the dependency, which is com.squareup.retrofit2 colon retrofit colon 2.9.0. Copy this. I am copying it down for your understanding. I am pasting it in the chat box. So you may just copy this dependency and paste it in your Android Studio. The class may go another 15 minutes late today. Is that okay? It's not okay. Okay, Jai Krishna sir says K. Praveen sir also accepts it. Okay, sir. Thank you. The class may not also go beyond 12:30. I'll make sure I'll close it by 12:30. I'll try to make sure. But if there is no chance, I'll take another 10 to 15 minutes time. All right, coming back, after adding this dependency and syncing your project properly, you need to jump into manifest file and take the permission to use internet service on the mobile. So go to manifest.xml, and before you begin the application tag, write users permission tag and select internet permission. So this is the line that you're supposed to add in the manifest file above the application tag. And this line, I'm pasting it in the chat box. Please find it out. And once you are done adding the internet permission on the manifest file, the next step is to create an interface. So right click on your Java package where your main activity is present. Go to new. All right. Okay. Right click on the package where your main activity is present. Go to new and select Java class. The kind of this class is the kind of this file is going to be an interface. So choose interface instead of class. And now give your class a name. I would like to call it GitHub service. Click OK. And now here you're supposed to write a method. So the methods in the interfaces will not have implementation. And interfaces in Java ensures that you achieve 100% of abstraction. So that's why we will write methods without, of course, we are supposed to write methods without implementation. So make sure that you are picking up call interface from retrofit 2 library. So make sure that you're choosing call from retrofit 2 library. There is a call class and there is a call interface. Please don't get confused between these two. Call is a class that is coming in from android.telecom, and call is the interface I'm talking about. It is coming from retrofit 2 library. You choose it, give the type of value that you are expecting. The type of value that I'm expecting is a string. I want the entire JSON response in a string format object or as a string object. I want the entire JSON response as a string object. Now after writing call, you write the method name. The method name is getRepos. That's it. And there are a lot of types in passing the request. If you want to get data, you're supposed to use get request. If you're passing some data to the server, you're supposed to use post as a request object, or at times we will also use put. And there are other request types as patch, delete, update, and so on. But in this case, we will only be using get method. So write @get. Nice. But if you want to get a repository, all the repositories of a particular user, you're supposed to write users slash, and you're supposed to give the username, and then you're supposed to write repos at the end. So this is the link which has to be built on top of the base URL. Okay. So the same example is also given in the official documentation. So this is the official documentation. The same example is given here. And that's what I'm also following. If you don't want to complicate this, I can cut it down short. So what I will do is I'll just remove this. All get repos directly, and there is no need of passing in the any kind of data that you can see on the official documentation. Okay, but feel free to use the official documentation later on, because you'll get more time. Okay, once we are done with this, the next step is add a conversion factory. What is a conversion factory? Generally, if you want to parse JSON, you're supposed to spend a couple of minutes in parsing the data. But if you use a conversion factory, then the conversion factory will take care of this JSON formatting thing. So all these conversion factories are available here. If you click on retrofit configuration, you get to see there are a lot of converters. We have JSON, Jackson, Moshi, Protobuf, Wire, Simple XML, JAXB, and Scalars. So all these are conversion factories that are available with retrofit, and to access these converters, you are supposed to use these dependencies. Okay, JSON, Jackson, Moshi, Protobuf, Wire, and Simple XML, along with JAXB, all these converters can be used if you are converting your responses with if you are converting the entire JSON response with a POJO object. But we are not going to use POJO objects, but we only want to get the object response in string format. That's why we will use this scalars. And most of the tutorials on YouTube and most of the blogs on the internet, they are mostly targeting, or they are mostly using Moshi or JSON, because they are the two most used libraries available in the market, because people, they don't want to spend a lot of time in parsing the JSON response. So, but in our case, as we are beginning our journey, we will use scalars converter to convert the entire JSON response into a string and get that string for us. So let me copy the dependency, go back to Android Studio, open build.gradle file corresponding to my app, and add this dependency like this, implementation, and in the pair of single quotes, you're supposed to write, paste the scalars converters dependency and add 2.9.0 as the version. The reason why I have added 2.9.0 as the version for scalars is because retrofit library's version is also 2.9.0, and retrofit library and converter of retrofit should be in the same scale. Okay, now the same implementation, I'm gonna copy it and paste it in the chat box. You please copy it down and paste it in the build.gradle file of your particular app. All right. So as soon as you add this, you'll get a sync now option on the top of the screen. You click on the sync now option so that your dependency will be downloaded and integrated to your project. Once it is done, come back to main activity and create an object for retrofit. So the object for retrofit can be created this way: retrofit and retrofit. Now to initialize this retrofit object, all we need to do is we should call retrofit, and on top of it we should call, sorry, we should initialize retrofit in such a way. I've got a doubt here, and that's okay. New retrofit dot builder. So retrofit actually uses a builder pattern to initialize its object. So new retrofit dot builder, and on top of it you should pass the URL. So pass the base URL. So the base URL is this. We have got a huge response from this link. So this link I'm gonna use it directly with my username in it. So I would like to paste the same URL in the chat box, so you can also use the same kind of a URL. But if you are interested in some other library that gives you a response in JSON format, feel free to use that particular link, and it's absolutely fine with me. So please use this link, copy the link and paste it in the base URL section on the retrofit on this particular place. And on top of the base URL, you are supposed to add a converter factory. So in which particular format you want the response in? I want the response in string format. Only for that reason I have added scalars converter factory. So I have to call scalars converter factory, and on top of it I should call create method. And finally I should call build method to initialize the retrofit object. And once this object is initialized, the next step is to call the method on GitHub service that would fetch the entire JSON response for you. So okay, let us wait for 2 minutes so that everyone can finish till this far. Meanwhile, for your convenience, I'm gonna add this I'm gonna add this line, the lines that initializes the retrofit object in the chat box. You please find it out there. So if everyone is done till this far, we will proceed. And I'm waiting for questions.
Sir, Samsevarao sir is asking to show interface, sir. Thanks.
All right. So I hope you're done till this far. Now the next step is to create what? Let's come back to the official documentation and check. So here we have got the GitHub service initialization, and after that we have to use this call method to get the values from the server. So that's what you are supposed to do. So come back, create a GitHub service interfaces object, and let's call it service. And that's equal to the retrofit objects. On top of it, if you call create method, and for this create method, if you pass GitHub service.class, that would initialize the service object of your GitHub service interface. And once it is done, we have to make use of this service, and on top of it, you can call get repos method that would fetch the content to you. Okay, and the content will be of type call of string. It is again a response object for that matter. Sorry. Yeah, that's it. So whatever we get from get repos method is of type call of string, right? And I'm calling this call of string object as response. Nice. Now on top of the response, you are supposed to call enqueue method, and for this enqueue method, you may call a new callback. So new and do control space. That would get you these methods. There are two methods will be coming in with this call, and those two methods are on response and on failure. On response is the method, on response method will be called as soon as you get some response successfully, and on failure method is called if your response is not fetched. So if you are getting a response, what I suggest you to do initially is show a toast message with the response that you got. So write toast dot make text, and in the text place we will get the entire response in response object. In my case it is response object, and in your case if the object name is different, use that different object name. So we should write response dot body. That would get the entire JSON response into the toast message. Now let us quickly run this app and see if we are getting the response or not. On failure also, you can write a simple toast message saying that the response is not fetched. The installation is successful. The installation is successful, but I cannot see the output. Maybe there are some errors. If I'm getting an error, that means I'm going in a good pace. Let's see where I'm going wrong, and let me correct myself, so that you can also correct yourself if you are going wrong anywhere later on. So note static method meta factory. There is no such method error or its superclass. So and the error is at main activities 24th line. So the link might be a wrong link. No, I don't think it's error with slash. All right, let's run this. Yeah, if I am running it, if it is coming down clearly, so a little bit modification that I can do is simply take this users. So let us just differentiate between the base URL and the current URL and recheck it again. But the current The specific URL can be written in between the double quotes inside the get method. So this is a little bit of change that I'm doing. For get method, I'm just writing what data I'm interested in, and on the base URL, I'm just writing the base URL. So if I run this app, if I'm again getting the error, that would be nice. Okay, I'm getting the same error because that means I'm not getting the error because of this base URL. Maybe it is of a different reason. Okay, let's recheck if the retrofit is initialized in the same way or not in the official documentation. Yeah, it is initialized in the same way. Okay, so in these situations, if you're not in a position to identify where you are going wrong, you can just search it online. Go to Google and paste the same error. Most of the times, the errors are already answered on Stack Overflow. So we have got a Stack Overflow link saying that there are no static method factory, and what it is, let us see. And it is also happening on retrofit probably because OKHTTP 3 is available. Retrofit is built on top of OKHTTP 3. So let's see where it is going wrong. So this is the place where it is going wrong. The source code compatibility has to match Java's 1.8 library. So for that reason, copy these lines of code. Okay, before that, let me paste this link in the chat box. So copy these lines of code, come back to build.gradle file of your app, and inside the Android section, please paste these lines of code that you just copied. Click on sync now so that most of your errors will be solved. And for Kotlin options, it is not able to find out the component. So I recommend you to remove Kotlin options. So only these things I'm pasting it in the Android section. So let me sync the project. Go back to the chat box, and these are the lines that I just pasted inside the Android section. All right. So once I have added these, the source compatibility and the target compatibility set to version 1.8. Now if I again run the app, I'm expecting an output. And I got it. There is a toast message, right? So I am successful in fetching the data from internet by using this process. And there is no need of pasting this URL here since it is pointing out to a, okay, let me remove it from here. Of course, even if it is here, there is no mistake. Even if it is not here, if it is in this place, even then there is no mistake because we are using a static URL. If it is a dynamic URL, you're supposed to paste it in the so let me rerun the app and check. Oh, okay, HTTPS base URL must end in slash. All right, let us put a slash after the repos. Okay. Maybe there is a different reason for this error. Okay, so get is missing the URL. Okay. So the previous method is comfortable now. Cut this from here. Go back onto the service. And in the double quotes, you write it here. That would fix it. But there shouldn't be any problems if your URL is ending with a slash. If the URL currently is not ending with a slash, that's why we are getting this error. So what happened? Did we get the output? Okay, go back and open the project again. The project is GitHub repo. So where is the project? G. Here it is. If I open the project, I'm getting the toast message. Nice. I'm getting some output. Good. Now I want to display this output to the user. I want to display all the repository names on my account to the user. First of all, let us analyze this JSON response. If you look at the JSON response and go to JSON formatter and validator, you get to see this link, JSON formatter and validator. Paste the link and click on process. You get to see the formatted output of your JSON response. So this JSON response is entirely coming in as an array object. And you know that square brackets represents an array. It is the same in JSON as well. If there is a square bracket, and that means you have an array. If you explore the array, there are so many objects, right? Each and every object is almost following the same syntax. 99.9% of the time, most of the internet based JSON responses are properly formatted. If the developer on the website, if he is working good, he'll give you a formatted JSON response in a proper way. All these responses are properly formatted. In each and every object, I get to see the owner response. The owner is another object here. Okay, let's not talk about owner object. So I've got description. Also, I've got the name of the repository. So these two things I'm interested in. Okay, so the entire JSON response has to be taken into one single array, and this array has to be traversed from top to bottom to go through from each and every object in the array. And when we go through each and every object in the array, we should get the name and display it to the user. For that, I would get a text view and place it in the main activity underscore main.xml. Let's give it an ID. We have a text view already, and let's give it an ID. Let's call it result. Now come back to main activity, connect this result. Create a text view object and call it result only. Now on onCreate method, initialize this result object. Result is equal to fvb r.id.result. Nice. Now on the onResponse method, you are supposed to parse the entire JSON response and extract all the titles of my repositories. So to do that, first of all, you should get the string response. So let's create a string object. Let's call it res. And this res can be initialized by calling response.body. So the entire JSON response is now available as res. Now make use of this res and make use of JSON arrays. So create a JSON array object. Let's call it JSON array, and that's equal to res dot new JSON array of res. So that would convert my entire JSON response, which is available as a string, into a JSON array format. Now we are getting an error under the JSON array response, and that shows JSON exception. So if it is showing an exception when I mouse over the error, that means I'm supposed to enclose this line in between try catch blocks. So all we need to do is put your cursor on this error response and try to give Alt Enter, and that would give you surround with try catch option. So click here and your code will be surrounded with try catch block. And we all know that exception is the superclass of all classes. So instead of writing JSON exception in catch, we shall just write exception in catch. That would catch all the exceptions that are coming in. So after this line, which converts the entire string response into JSON array response, the next step is to traverse through this array. So to traverse through this array, I'm gonna write a for loop. For I is equal to 0, I less than JSON array dot length I plus plus. Now I will go through every response in the JSON array. So the thing is, string title is equal to, first extract the object. We are inside the array. Now go through every object. Now get the object from this array. So JSON object, which is, okay, let's call it object, is equal to JSON array dot get of I. So I holds a number from 0 to the length of the array, and when we call JSON array dot get of I, it will get you the specific object, specific JSON object into this object. But this is showing, okay, instead of get we should call maybe a different method. Get JSON object should be the right method, because by reading the error I understood that. So if I just write get, it is unable to understand into which particular format it has to convert the response in. But if I just call get JSON object, it will search for JSON objects inside this array and get a specific JSON object based on the index. Now after this, simply create a string. Let's call it title, and that should be equal to object dot get string. And if you observe carefully, if you look at it carefully, the values are available in key and value pairs. So the key is in bold and the value is in gray. So you should copy this bold color, this bold text, so that you can extract the text from each and every object that you traverse through traverse through in the array. Okay, so copy this name, come back, and inside the double quotations, go ahead and add name. Now on the text view, which is called probably not written, sorry, probably called, yeah, result. On top of the result, set the text, or if you set the text every time a new title appears, when a new title comes in, the current title will be replaced. So instead of using set text, let's use append of title. That's great. So whatever the titles that you have, whatever the repositories that you have, all those repositories titles will be coming in and they will be shown on the text view. And that's how you parse JSON object. So only to make you understand how to parse JSON object, I have taken a hard converter, which is scalars converter. If you are comfortable with this scalars converter, you please go ahead and use Moshi or JSON. To convert the JSON response into POJO classes, which stands for plain old Java objects, there are so many converters available online, and there are also few plugins in Android Studio which will help you do that easily. Alright, now my app is running. Now if I look at it, I've got all the responses, all the titles as a result on the text view. Only the titles are extracted. So to have more formatted titles, all I need to do is I have to just concatenate with \n. and that would give you a nice result, by the way, isn't it? All the repository titles are displayed. And this is how we use retrofit library. For more details on retrofit library, I have already pasted the link for accessing the official documentation. Okay, there are two important parts in official and in this particular official documentation. The thing is, on introduction, most of the basic concepts are covered on introduction, and if you are struggling a lot with the conversion factories, I suggest you to go through retrofit configuration, where you'll have the detailed information about all the converters that we have: JSON, Jackson, Moshi, Protobuf, Wire, Simple XML, and JAXP. Scalars is less used converter factory that we have, but JSON and Moshi are mostly used. Jackson is also a popular one. I want you to give your hand a try on all these things. Thank you so much for your patience and have a good day. This takes us to the end of the session. If you have any doubts, you please ask me. Anyway, I will be pushing the code to the GitHub repository that we maintain. In the afternoon, Sai Shankar, he is not present here. Chaitanya or somebody else will be joining in the doubt session. If you have anything to ask, you please ask in the afternoon session.